Dear children, it's me, Sister Reena, your English teacher.
Welcome to the English class. So, as we used to do in our St. Francis School, let's begin this class by seeking the blessings of the Almighty. Yes, thank you. Now, please be seated comfortably and listen to me carefully.
I was teaching some of you in class 6, but some others are new to me. It doesn't matter. But one thing is required from all of you, your wholehearted cooperation. Then our journey through English literature will be a fantastic one. Okay, this year you have got a new book named Gems English Reader. And it begins with a thrilling detective story, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. This extract is adapted from A Sherlock Holmes Mystery by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and it is modified and rewritten for you by Uma Raman. Dear students, since you haven't got your textbook yet, today I would like to give you an introduction to the author and to the story. And in the coming days, I can explain to you the story from the textbook part by part. Also, I will be posting the story pages for you so that you can read it carefully and have better understanding with the help of the videos, images and other Google links, etc. Now tell me, how many of you like detective stories? Yes, I know most of you like crime stories, mystery stories, because there will be suspense, horror, secrets, and at last the criminals will be found out by the detective and all the mysteries will be solved. Are you familiar with Sherlock Holmes, the most famous detective? Last year, in the Magnolia Class 8 textbook, there was a wonderful Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of the Speckled Band. And this year, you are lucky to have another exciting Sherlock Holmes mystery, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. First of all, you need to keep in mind that the detective Sherlock Holmes and his close friend Dr. Watson are the well-known literary characters created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He made them immortal, means these characters will never die from the heart of the reader. Now look at this introduction given in your textbook about the author. Arthur Conan Doyle was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. He was a novelist and writer of detective and science fiction. His famous detective Sherlock Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson are immortal characters. Some of his works are A Study in Scarlet, The Sign of Fall, The Hound of the Baskervilles, and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You know, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is a collection of 12 short stories, and the 7th one is given in your textbook as the first chapter. Do you remember the name? Yes, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. You know what is carbuncle? The word carbuncle has got different meanings, but here in this story it means a bright gem or gemstone, or it is the name of a diamond. Now can you guess how a diamond can have adventure? That is what we are going to see in the coming days. There are many mysteries and secrets in the first part of the story. But if you're clever, you can find it out. along with Sherlock Holmes the detective.
For that, you need to read the text with keen observation. That's why I have posted the story here. Try to read it, okay? Before reading, watch these movies. Yes, I have added here the first part of the story from two different films to make you happy as well as to make it easy for you to understand the story. Also, you will identify some differences between the story in the textbook and in the movies.
Holmes! Oh, you're up. The Countess of Morcar is offering £1,000 for the return of the blue carbuncle. Inspector Bradstreet of B Division is in charge of the case and has arrested Mr. John Horner, a plumber aged 36, who protested his innocence in the strongest terms. Circumstantial evidence was so strong that the case has been referred to the assizes. Horner, who showed signs of intense emotion during the proceedings, faded away at the conclusion and was carried from the court. Oh, excuse me, you are engaged. I am interrupting your study of that hat.
No. The matter is a perfectly trivial one. But there are points in connection with it which are not devoid of interest, even of instruction.
I suppose that, homely as it looks, that thing has some deadly story linked to it. That is the clue which will guide you in the solution of some mystery and the punishment of some crime.
No. It is just one of those whimsical little incidents that will occur when you have 4 million people all jostling each other within the space of a few square miles.
So what do you gather from that? Battered old felt.
You know my methods. What do you yourself gather as to the individuality of the man who has worn this particular article? It was accompanied by a goose, Watson. For Mrs. Henry Baker was printed upon a small card attached to the bird's left leg.
Well, apart from the initials inside, HB, presumably Henry Baker, I can see nothing.
On the contrary, Watson, you can see everything. But you fail to reason from what you see. You are too timid in drawing your inferences.
Then, pray, tell me what it is that you can infer from that hat.
That the man is highly intellectual is, of course, obvious. And also that he was fairly well-to-do within the past 3 years, although now he has fallen upon evil days. He had foresight, but less now than formerly, pointing to a moral retrogression, which, when taken with a decline in his fortunes, seems to indicate an evil influence. Probably drink. This may account also for the fact that his wife has ceased to love him.
My dear Holmes.
He has, however, retained some degree of self-respect. No, he leads a sedentary life. He's out of training entirely. He's middle-aged, has grizzled hair, which he has had cut within the last few days, and which he anoints with lime cream. It is also highly improbable that he has gas laid on in his house.
Well, now you are certainly joking.
Not in the least.
Well, I have no doubt that I'm very stupid. For example, how do you deduce that the man is intellectual?
It is a question of cubic capacity. A man with so large a head must have something in it.
Well, the decline in his fortunes, then?
These flat brims with the curled edges came in 3 years ago. It is a hat of the very best quality, Watson. Look at the band of ribbed silk and the excellent lining. If this man could afford so expensive a hat 3 years ago and has had no hat since, then he has assuredly gone down in the world.
What about the foresight and the moral retrogression?
Here is the foresight. These securers are never sold upon hats. If this man ordered one, It is a sign of a certain amount of foresight, since he went out of his way to take precaution against the wind. But as you see that he has broken the elastic and has not troubled to replace it, a weakening nature. The further points that he is middle-aged, that his hair is grizzled, that it has been cut recently, and that he anoints it with lime cream can all be gathered by an inspection of the lower part of the lining, Watson, and witness the moisture. Obviously a free perspirer, therefore not in the best of training.
But his wife, you said she had ceased to love him.
This hat has not been brushed for weeks. When I see a man with a week's accumulation of dust upon his hat, and his wife has allowed him to go out in such a state, I fear that he has been unfortunate enough to lose his wife's affections.
But he might be a bachelor.
Nay, but he brought a goose as a peace offering to his wife. Remember the card attached to the bird's leg?
Yes. Well, you have an answer to everything. Just a minute, just a minute. How do you deduce that there is no gas laid on in his house?
One tallow candle stain, or even two might come by chance, but when I see Watson, no less than 5. He never got candle stains from a gas jet, Watson. Are you satisfied?
Holmes, there you are. I saw Mrs. Dixon at the station. She asked me to remember to you, and she sent you the compliments of the season.
What do you make of it?
Eh? I'm back, Holmes.
It makes an excellent exercise. You know my methods. What are you doing?
Well, hanging up your hat. You seem to want to be rid of it.
No, Watson. Examine it. Tell me what you find.
Is it a clue?
Not a clue, but several.
You're on a case.
No. Here is my glass. Now, tell me about that hat. I'm delighted to see you back. It is lonely here without you. I trust you return my compliments to Mrs. Dixon. Now, what do you find?
What do you want me to find?
Everything. Take your time. Now, that hat is the trophy of one of those whimsical little incidents which will happen when you have 4 million people all jostling each other within the space of a few square miles.
Well, it's an old, black, ordinary hat. No maker's label. Rather the worse for wear. The lining is, or rather was, red silk, now much discoloured. The initials, HB, are embossed inside. How am I doing?
Very well. Go on.
Well, it's very dusty. It's spotted in some places. It looks as though... Yes. Someone has tried to cover up the spots with black ink. The rim is pierced for a hat securer, now missing.
Excellent, my dear Watson. Continue.
That's all.
All?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's very large and rather disreputable. What else do you want me to say?
Deductions, Watson, deductions.
Oh. Well, it belonged to a man who has no respect for his clothes. And, yes, wait a minute. He has grey hair, has just had a haircut, and he uses lime cream hairdressing.
Bravo! You spotted the clippings and the smell. So, what do we have? A grey-haired intellectual who 3 years ago was well-to-do but has since fallen on hard times. He once had foresight, he now has less. His wife has ceased to love him, and it is doubtful if he has gas laid on in his house.
Oh, my dear Holmes, you're certainly joking.
Well, not in the least. You have the evidence.
Oh, come. Why intellectual? How can you possibly know about the man's financial standing?
Firstly, it is a matter of cubic capacity. A man with so large a brain must have something in it.
Oh, no. That's far from medically exact. There are some people with large heads who are congenital idiots.
True. But this man leads a sedentary life, indicated by the amount of domestic dust. When new, this hat was a very good one. Notice the quality of the ribbed silk band and the silk lining. He had the foresight to take precaution against the wind by having a hat securer fitted. But he has less foresight now, for when it broke, he did not have it repaired. A sedentary man with taste, foresight, and such cranial capacity is unlikely to be an idiot.
You have an answer for everything. But I notice you have avoided telling me about the man's wealth 3 years ago and poverty now.
Now, this once excellent hat is 3 years old. These flat brims curled at the edges only came into fashion then. If our man could afford such a hat 3 years ago, but has not bought another since, or replaced the securer, then he has surely come down in the world.
Yes, clear enough. But please, Holmes, just for my peace of mind, confound me further by telling me why his wife has ceased to love him.
Well, now, this hat has not been brushed for weeks. When a man is allowed to go about with such an accumulation of dust upon his hat, one fears he has lost his wife's affection. And that is what has happened to Mr. Henry Baker.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry Baker?
The name of the owner.
Oh, come now, Holmes, really, you go too far. To assume that the initials HB stand for... Well, I mean, they could equally stand for Hathaway Broughton. And anyway, he might be a bachelor.
Nay, that would be to neglect the evidence of the goose.
Goose?
Lost by the same man on the corner of Goode Street. It had a label round its neck marked to Mrs. Henry Baker.
You saw all this? Then you are involved in some crime.
No crime, Watson. 2 nights ago, Peterson, the commissioner, saw a man set upon by a couple of roughs. In defending himself, the man broke a shop window. When Peterson rushed up, they all fled.
Why? Why? I mean, surely this Mr. Henry Baker was the injured party.
Ah, but Peterson was in uniform and Baker had broken a window. Seeing an official-looking person running towards him, he panicked and took to his heels, leaving behind his hat and his Christmas dinner.